Welcome into Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, the latest Texans injury news and some top free agents the Texans can sign. Little sneak peek. Texans already signed a couple guys today. We'll break that down at the top of the show. But H-Town, I'm going to need you to stand up right now. If you're proud of this team, because going into the year, everybody said, oh, the Texans, they made the biggest mistake trading their first-round pick in this year's draft for Will Anderson. It's going to be a top 3 pick. Not so fast, sweetheart. The Texans, they're on a roll. And if you are so proud that this team is representing H-Town, if you're like, hey, these guys, they're working their butts off, I appreciate them. I had a little birdie told me a couple of those guys, they watched this program right here. So why don't you go down and like today's video to show them how proud you are of this Texans team, especially after an insane 39-37 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Go down and like this video if you're proud of this Texans team so far. So a couple signings to break off our show at the very top. It's Grayland Arnold, somebody who's been on the team, been off the team. He's actually played pretty well while he's been on the active roster for the Houston Texans. He is back on the active roster, coming off some injury news from our safeties. We'll get to that in just a moment. But I talked about it on our show yesterday. The Texans, they need to sign somebody because Kaimi Fairbairn, he's questionable for this weekend. Well, they went ahead and they did that. They signed Matt Ammendola to the practice squad. Probably going to elevate him to the active roster, depending on Kaimi Fairbairn. I think it's more than likely you'll see Matt Ammendola kicking for the Houston Texans this coming weekend up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, going on to more Texans injuries, Texans key injuries coming up this week. I just said it, Kaimi Fairbairn. He's questionable to return this week up against the Cincinnati Bengals, but he is not the only one. We've got a lot of other guys who are questionable to return. Robert Woods, Dameon Pierce, Sheldon Rankins, Brevin Jordan, all who missed this past weekend. John Mechie III, Jimmy Ward, somebody who got injured in that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's another guy who is questionable to return. And some not so good news, a couple guys moved to IR. We already knew Jarrett Patterson, Tegan Quatoriano on IR, so is Eric Murray. MJ Stewart and Hassan Ridgeway both moved to IR. That means they're missing at least 4 weeks on the season. Not good news for this Texans defense as they have a couple, rotation guys, a couple guys who played some key minutes for this Texans team. They're going to be out for a substantial amount of time. Now, I'm getting a lot of, questions. What do you know about Scruggs? What do you know about Stingley? What do you know about these guys? When are they coming back? I don't know. I mean, Juice Scruggs, it mums the word around NRG because D'Amico Ryans, he just keeps on preaching the same thing. He's on the right track. He looks like he's going to be able to return soon enough. Derek Stingley, the same sentiment. I have no clue. Juice Scruggs has not really even practiced Derek Stingley. I don't know when he's going to be able to return. So that begs the question, will either of these guys return this week? But I have an interesting one for you. If you had to pick one of these guys to return this week up against the Bengals, who would it be? Would it be Juice Scruggs? Go ahead and type Juice down in the comment section. Or would you rather have Derek Stingley for this matchup this weekend? This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. I'm really interested on what you have to say. So let me know down in the comment section. If you had to pick one of these guys to return this week, who would it be? I'm going with Stingley. Even though I think Juice might be the better player in the long run, I really like what I saw from Juice at the beginning of the season. I think when you're going up against the Bengals, you think of one thing. It's their wide receiver room. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, 2 guys who are electric on the outside. It'd be really nice to get Stingley back. Do I think he's going to be back? I don't think so. But if the Texans could somehow get Stingley back, even if he's in, somewhat of a limited role, plays in like nickel and only passing downs, I think that would be really helpful as the Texans take on a potent passing attack with the Cincinnati Bengals. Coming up, I have 3 free agents to sign moving forward. The Texans really didn't make any moves around the trade deadline, but there could be some guys who are still out there who could help improve this Texans roster because, hey, they're right in the thick of things when it comes to the AFC playoff race. So these 3 guys I had down could help the Texans as we get further and further into the season. But I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our sponsor, Prize Picks. It's easy and exciting daily fantasy, and it's made easy just for you folks. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And these are the picks I'm rolling with. After that huge game these guys had this past week, why not roll while the iron's hot? I'm going more on Tank Dell receiving yards at 44.5. Give me that. Nico Collins, more than 58.5 receiving yards and more than 248.5 pass yards from C.J. Stroud. Yeah, you can use my picks. You can fade my picks as long as you do it with Prize Picks. And if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100, it's free money, folks. Go and get it while it lasts. Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Now, 3 free agents to sign moving forward as the Texans are getting into the latter stages of the season. We're already at week 10. I mean, that's time flies fast, or time goes fast when you're having fun, right? I probably butchered that, but let's go into these free agents to sign. The first one, Matthew Ioannidis, defensive lineman, veteran in this league. He's been around the block. I think as we see, the Texans have had some D-line, depth issues. Sheldon Rankins has missed some time. Hassan Ridgeway now moved to IR. I think the Texans need to add a big boy. And Matthew Ioannidis, I think he fits the bill for this team. 6'3", 310 pounds, out of Chase Senior's alma mater, Temple University. Last year, decent numbers, 37 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. Matthew Ioannidis, I think it'll be a decent pickup at this point in the season. Now, obviously, you're like, oh, Matthew Ioannidis, he's not amazing. Well, nobody that you sign right now is going to be amazing. At this point in the season, you're looking at guys that can just help you, provide depth, be rotation guys. I think Matthew Ioannidis, he can be just that for the Houston Texans. I have 2 more names coming up, but I have another question for you because it's called Chat Sports. It's not Jeremy Sports. So I need that dialogue between me and you. I want to hear what you have to say because I care what you have to say. What do you think about this? What's the weakest position group on the Texans right now? Be honest with me. Let me know. Do you think it's the defensive line? Do you think it's the secondary? Maybe the offensive line? Maybe running backs? What do you think is the weakest position group on the Texans right now? Another free agent to sign, Eric Rowe. I'm really surprised he hasn't made a roster or been signed so far this year. Was with the Miami Dolphins last year, and I don't think he was too bad. I mean, a decent, rotational safety player, a secondary piece that you can use. I think Eric Rowe is a decent guy to get at this point in the season, especially, Jimmy Ward has been injured a lot. We saw Jalen Petrie injured at the beginning of the season. MJ Stewart now moved to IR. You signed Grayland Arnold, but do you need another safety? I mean, if Jimmy Ward continues to get injured, could you use another guy on that back end just in case? I think Eric Rowe is a name to keep an eye out on, especially because Texans safeties seem to be dropping like flies this year. I don't know why, but if there's another injury, if there's another key injury, look for Eric Rowe to be somebody who the Texans maybe bring in for a workout, maybe sign at some point throughout the rest of the season. And this guy, it's not a new name. I just want to bring him up again because with everything going on with the Texans offensive line, I think Ben Jones is a guy, especially if Juice Scruggs is out for the rest of the year, that you should really consider signing. A former Texan, a former guy that was with this franchise. Ben Jones, decent player last year for the Tennessee Titans. I think if you look at this guy, I mean, Michael Dieter's been playing decent. But in all reality, if Juice Scruggs isn't coming back for the year, Jarrett Patterson, if he's not able to come back for the rest of the year, you need another option there at the center position. And I think Ben Jones can be that option. Go out and at least talk to him, at least bring him in for a workout, gauge his interest. I know he hasn't played throughout this whole season. Maybe fresh legs, I don't know. But I don't think you can stay pat, especially with how many injuries this offensive line has had. I talked about the safeties were dropping like flies. I mean, the Texans' offensive line are dropping like flies around one of those bug zappers. Like, they just seem to be going out each and every week. So you got to keep your eye out on some of these free agents to sign. Maybe steal a couple practice squad guys from other teams, because when it comes down to it, the Texans could be a playoff team this year. This year, they could make the playoffs in the AFC. So if you're trying to at least make the most of this team, make the most of your run, because you never know year over year. I mean, we saw a Giants team multiple times win the Super Bowl whenever they were the last wild card spot. Why not us? Really, why not us? Why not the Texans? So you got to make the most of your opportunities when they arrive. So keep in mind these free agents. Be on the lookout, especially if there's more injuries to come against the Bengals this coming weekend. That's all for today's show. I appreciate everybody who's made it to the very end of today's show. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because we're bringing you Texans news and rumors all year long. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. Per fact, the best Texans channel on YouTube per my mom. So go ahead, go down and subscribe today for the latest Texans news and rumors.